welcome to my channel. This is the first video that I've done, so please bear with me. I wanted to talk about my experience as a late diagnosed autistic person with combined type ADHD and my experience of that within the British healthcare system, which can be very different to that experienced other areas of the world, such as America or Australia. I am not a medical professional and I have no training in the fields of psychiatry or psychology. I just wanted to share my own opinions and my own experiences. You might find that some or all of my traits resonate with you, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you are autistic or have ADHD. Or you might find that my experiences and traits do not resonate with you, and that doesn't mean that you're not autistic and that you don't have ADHD, because every single autistic person and ADHD have different degrees of the traits that are recognised as autistic or ADHD. And when you have a combination of the both, it's even more likely that your experience will not be exactly the same as somebody else with a diagnosis of autism and ADHD. The traits of ADHD can also be explained by other mental health conditions or trauma, for example. So it is important to understand that the only way to be sure is to seek an official diagnosis. But that being said, self-diagnosis is very valid. A lot of people can't get diagnosis because the waiting lists are just too long. And if you feel that, after doing some research, that the traits and the experiences of other people that have been diagnosed autistic or with ADHD or both fit with your experience of life, then that is very likely, that that's what it is that's affecting your life. However, if you don't get a diagnosis of ADHD, then you don't have access to medication if that's a route that you want to go down. So that can be, something that you want to pursue. I found personally that even though I self-diagnosed, I couldn't openly say that I was autistic or that I had ADHD because I thought that other people would not believe me, that they would um, say that, well, you're not diagnosed, you're just, a bit weird or a bit odd or something, you're just different. And I think that you feel like an imposter. So for me, it was important. Um, but saying that as well, diagnosed, you go through quite a period afterwards thinking, no, surely I'm not. Maybe I just convinced them. Maybe it's not actually true, but it takes a little while to get over that. And then you just realize, yeah, I am totally autistic. I didn't actually get my diagnosis till I was 49, so I've been diagnosed about a year and a half. Why did I decide to do that at this time of life? Perimenopause is pretty much the answer to that. I had been aware that there was a possibility that I was autistic for a number of years because a younger family member has a diagnosis of autism. And when their parent was speaking to me about it, saying that they thought that their child was autistic, I was very ignorant. I didn't really understand how autism presented because my experience of autism, the only experience I had prior to this of autism, was a little boy that was at my children's play school, and he didn't communicate with anybody else. He was quite internalized. And then if anybody touched something that he had or tried to take the book off him that he was looking at, because it was time to pack away, he would scream. He was very uncommunicative and obviously had quite a bit of struggle with being in a neurotypical environment. That was my only experience. I don't remember anybody being autistic when I was a child, and so my opinion was, don't be ridiculous, they're just a little bit eccentric. And then the parent would be saying to me, but they do this, and then I would be like, yeah, but I do that. How is that autistic? And I imagine that for them it was very frustrating having that conversation with me because I was just like, oh, this is ridiculous. Everybody's, autistic these days. And how come your friends have children that are autistic when I literally didn't know anybody else that was autistic apart from this one small child, when I'd got to the age of like into my 40s. And it's ignorance. Nobody understands until you actually research it. Nobody has a clue. Nobody has a clue how many different ways that autism presents and how differently it can affect a person. So, some children with autism actually have an intellectual disability, which is a totally separate diagnosis. So, they're, I don't know, a learning disability, for example, isn't autism, it is a learning disability, and that's usually diagnosed separately too. And that's not to say that the autism itself doesn't affect them at a higher level than it affects me. They don't, they used to have like low functioning, high functioning autism diagnoses, and they don't say that anymore because it's just not useful at all. And there was historically a diagnosis of Asperger's syndrome, which probably would have been what I would have been diagnosed with rather than autism, because it was classed as high functioning autism. But all that means is that you can actually manage to get through life to some degree that's a lot easier maybe than somebody else because you haven't got an intellectual disability or a learning disability alongside your autism, really. The Asperger's diagnosis is no longer a term that is used, that it's not a diagnosis anymore. I mean, it's a valid diagnosis for the people who were historically diagnosed with it, but you can't get a diagnosis of Asperger's anymore. So, like I say, I was very ignorant, and because I was like, no, I'm just like that. I'm just like that. And I don't, how can that be autism? So I actually did an online test. I think I did the AQ10 first and then I did the AQ50, and it came out with a really high score. And I was like, oh, maybe I've just filled this in and made it come out with that score somehow on purpose. So I then got my husband to do the same quiz, but as if it was me. So he had to read the questions and answer them as he thought that I would answer them because of how he knows me. We've been together since I was 15, so he knows me very well. And he actually came up with a higher score than I came up with for myself. So I just kind of shelved that at the time and thought, well, maybe I am autistic. And then I didn't really think about it too much more. And then when perimenopause hit, it was the ADHD traits that became worse, although I was having meltdowns as well, on the autistic side of things. At work, I've always managed to mask and maintain a professional position no matter what. And just things like there's one particular member of staff that is no longer at our workplace, and they would do things like pull my hat off my head. I just lose it. Absolutely lose my rag. Ranting and stopping and giving them a piece of my mind. And I take my dog to work as well. And there was, when she was a puppy, she'd had some kind of muscle strain in her, or tendon strain or something in her leg. And I'd said to this person, do not wind my dog up. She needs not to be jumping around on her leg, stop winding her up. And she just totally ignored me, winding my dog up to the point, then she was limping. I was like, you have got to be kidding me. And I absolutely, like, swearing everything, went absolutely mental. I just couldn't, I just could not stop myself from behaving in the way that I can't control if I do have a meltdown. And then I just get upset and start crying afterwards. It's just, that was like the first sort of little bits and pieces of not being able to control my behaviour. I also had so many odd symptoms of perimenopause and like nerve symptoms. And then I also was getting synesthesia. So synesthesia is where you get an input to one sense and another sense in your body seems to give an output, I suppose. So sound, I listened to, I mean, it happened when I had COVID. I couldn't, when my husband was emptying the dishwasher, the sound of like the cutlery and everything, and he's in a totally different room. It was like somebody was punching me and stabbing me, and I just couldn't bear it. Absolutely couldn't bear it. So I was hearing sound, but it was causing sensations in my body. And I did think about that at the time because although I'm pretty sure the COVID thing had heightened my nervous system, I have a really, really heightened nervous system and overactive nervous system and overactive immune system as it is. And it was just horrendous. And then my brother posted some music that he made on Facebook, and it was synthesizer music, and I listened to it, and it's not something I would usually listen to. And oh my god, I like ended up with had a horrible vibratory sort of sensation in my arms and in my torso, and it was just. And then I got a pain in my head, so I switched it off, and I thought that was really weird, really, really weird. So then I waited a while till I felt absolutely fine, and I played it again, and exactly the same thing happened. Pain in my head, and I'm just like switched it off, you know, the vibrating and the weird sensations in my arm and stuff. And I switched it off again, and the pain in my head went away. And then I thought, I'm gonna have to investigate this. So, as I do, go on Google. I knew it was called synesthesia. In the realms of special interest, mine is the human body, how it works and how it doesn't work, so anatomy, physiology, and pathology. And I just thought, I'm just going to have a look at synesthesia again. As soon as I had a look at it, I confirmed the fact that it was synesthesia, but also synesthesia is common in people with autism. I was like, God, there it is again. So I thought, I'm going to look into getting a diagnosis. I discussed it with another family member, and I thought, and my husband as well. And they agreed that I probably should get a diagnosis, but also suggested that I might have ADHD. And I couldn't, I was like, ADHD? I'm not hyperactive. What are you talking about? But again, it's that stereotype. You think ADHD, you think little boys that are running around uncontrollable after you've given them cheesy Wotsits or whatever. I wouldn't have ever described myself as hyperactive, although I do have moments where I can be hyperactive. And I'd also, prior to this, gone to see a mental health team in my local area. Tried to get an appointment with a psychiatrist, but that's a joke. Don't know how long the waiting list is, but goodness me, if you know, trigger warning here, but if you're feeling like you don't want to be alive, you'd think you would get an appointment pretty quickly, wouldn't you? But not at all. I actually thought that I was bipolar or something because of feeling like low, and there'd be times where I was really energetic and hyper fixated on a hobby or something and spending loads of money on equipment for a hobby, and then I would just lose interest, and then I would have periods where it felt like depression or something for just like a couple of weeks, and then I'd kind of come out of it, and I was like, I must have bipolar. Maybe I've got bipolar. I mean, my dad was schizophrenic, and I just thought, maybe I've got something like that. I actually got screened for schizophrenia as well over the phone because I was panicking that I had that as well. But yeah, perimenopause is evil. It is brutal if you are neurodivergent. So it, you know, it's trying to work out what's going on and making sense of it, and feeling broken and screwed in the head as well. And then when you research the traits and how autism presents, and you read, I mean, I read book after book, and it just made so much sense. So I decided that I was gonna get assessed. I mean, it was quite quick. There's I will go into more detail about this towards the end of the video, but there's a right to choose process that you can use in England, and that's what I did. And I actually got from putting my, because they sent me some more forms to fill in, from putting my forms in to the company and to getting my diagnosis appointment was 6 months for autism and 7 months for ADHD. Like literally, I was almost a month to the day after my autism diagnosis. And when I got my autism diagnosis, they actually told me that if I hadn't already been waiting for an ADHD diagnosis, they would have suggested that I get myself put forward for that assessment as well. So my ADHD, going back to that because I've totally digressed again and gone off on another tangent, doesn't present itself in the hyperactive running around and getting all excited kind of way. It is internally hyperactive, so my brain is just on the go. I have a lot of thoughts all at the same time, and maybe 3 songs at the most playing at the same time. It's usually snippets of a song that's just repeated over and over again, and it's I mean, I can dissociate from it. This is something I've been doing all my life. I've been dissociating from synesthesia because I have remembered times where I have had sound affect me as like pain or weird sensations in my body before. I mean, synesthesia can cover a lot of things. You can see colours when people say words, or see shapes or numbers. There's all sorts of different things. It's literally receiving input, whether it be visually or auditory, and it then producing something from another sense that isn't classed as typical. It's not the normal response to the input, if that makes sense. So I've gone off topic again. Cannot even remember where I was. Oh, dissociating. So yeah, dissociation is something that I am really good at. So I do manage to most of the time dissociate from the sort of, well, I guess it's the unpleasant sides of my experiences. And then sometimes I can't, and mostly it's when I'm tired. I don't have the ability to dissociate, or if I'm poorly, I can't dissociate. It's a skill. It's probably not the greatest thing, dissociating from what's going on around you, but sometimes you've got to, I guess, otherwise you drive you mad. So yeah, I mean, I went on a deep dive before I went for diagnosis. I wanted to be really sure that that was what was going on. And, sensory overwhelm for me is a big thing. Smells, I mean, I will actually literally cover my nose if somebody with bad BO is in my vicinity, but same with perfumes as well. I get migraines, instant migraines from smelling many different types of perfume. It's usually the more expensive ones with the heavier, I think it's like an oil content or something in them. I just can't. I tell people I'm really sorry, but I am getting a migraine from your perfume. I'm going to have to either move away from you or cover my mouth while on my nose. Sometimes I can actually get away with breathing through my mouth. If I don't smell it, it doesn't necessarily trigger it, but I just end up covering my face while I'm talking to people if I have to talk to them. Otherwise, I just walk away. It is, light, noise, touch. I don't like people touching me. I get sick and tired of people touching me. I'm sick and tired of telling people not to touch me. I don't obviously like my husband touching me. I don't like unexpected touch, even though, I've said before, oh, how come you never just like touch me when you're walking past or whatever? It's like, I've tried, he says, and at the risk of getting my head bitten off or really like negative reaction, yeah, no. But people that shouldn't be touching you, why do people do it? Why do they put their hands on your arm when they're speaking to you? Why do they need to touch you? It just drives me mad. And men are the worst. Men are the worst. and they just, I don't know, they think they've got some kind of right to touch you. And it's the more female you dress, the worse it seems to be. In my experience, it is, yeah, they just should stop it. Textures. I mean, I can get sensory overwhelmed with textures, but I am actually sensory seeking to a certain degree with textures. So I like a strokable book cover, and my sofa is made of like a untreated leather, so it's all soft and strokable, and I can be found stroking the arm of the sofa. There's so many things that can overwhelm your senses, but perimenopause has made it so much worse. I mean, I can't even do my shopping now in Tesco's. I have to wear headphones and listen to a podcast. You know, I have my door shut at work because I don't want to listen to people taping up boxes because, oh my God, brown tape on boxes. I could scream. I literally could scream. There's just so many things that overwhelm your senses that in autism, again, it's the nervous system. We just have so many more neural connections. And what I've read, when you are a very small child, you should go through a process called neural pruning, where so many nerves that you don't really need get pruned off. You know, the connections for the feedback to your brain. But in people with autism, apparently, the amount of neural pruning that happens is very, very minimal. So you're left with all these additional little messengers to your brain giving feedback that, and it's just overwhelming. So yeah, and my immune system overreacts as well. That's caused me problems. So yeah, I had the things that I kind of identified were task paralysis, inertia, executive functioning issues. So not being able to start a task because I get too overwhelmed by all the things that are involved in doing it. So rather than just taking one step and starting on it, I just can't. Sometimes I just not do something because the idea of every little thing is overwhelming. Inertia and executive functioning issues, that's been a big thing as well since perimenopause. I just sit there thinking, I need to do this, or I want to do this, but I can't actually get up and do it. It's so frustrating that you wouldn't even believe. You think that if you had the thought that you wanted to do something, it wasn't just because like it was the washing up and you definitely didn't want to do that and it just needed doing, but things that I want to do, not just things that I need to do, I just cannot do the thing. So yeah, that's a real bummer. Rarely feeling joy or excitement. So I mean, laughing at myself, like talking about this looks like I feel joy, you know, smiling or whatever. And I can laugh at things and find things funny, but actual that gaining joy from being alive or generally feeling elated or excited, it just doesn't really happen for me unless I've seen a new hobby or art medium that I want to try and I get all excited about, oh, I'm going to do this and I can make this and I can do that. And generally there's an idea that, oh, I might be able to make a business out of this, or which never happens, not successfully anyway. And I'll get that moment of feeling excited or, ooh, yeah, this seems exciting. I could feel excited about booking a holiday, but literally within days, I couldn't care less. Just, and there's no excitement. There's no excitement about going to an airport, that's for sure. There's no excitement about sitting in an aeroplane with other people that smell or cough or breathe close to my face, making noise, talking, laughing, babies crying. I just, you know, the whole idea of that is like just a nightmare. And now I know why I wear earphones. I actually wear a lanyard when I go to the airport so that I don't have to stand in queues for a long time in close proximity to other people, and so that people understand why that is. It's difficult when you've only, you know, not known you've been autistic all your life, and then suddenly you are to like start wearing a lanyard, identifying yourself to other people as being autistic. Yeah, so Rarely feeling joy or excitement, rigid ways of doing things and having a meltdown if people don't follow the rules or do things the way I want them doing, or if they touch my stuff or move my stuff. I mean, that's been going on forever. When I was younger, I had to be the first person to read the newspaper when it came through the door, the local newspaper. I would get a magazine every week, and if anybody touched my magazine, and there was even like, I would iron it. Slightest crease, slightest, how dare you touch my magazine? I'd try to make it new again, like it was untouched, and I would literally iron my magazine. At work, everybody views me as like really anal, rule following. You know, it's difficult because for me to be able to do my job properly, I need people to do their job properly before I end up with the paperwork that comes from their job. And if it's not done in a way that is complete, like missing dates or missing payment terms or just things not being filled in properly or unreadable or I just like, why can't you just not do this? It's quite simple. It's a box you're filling in and it says there what's supposed to go in that box. Why have you not completed it? And when I got diagnosed, I went into work and I was like, I'm autistic. Because I was just like, I know what people think. I know what people think. I'm not one of the group, but that's fine. I like my own company. I get on with people all right when I see them and speak to them. So there's that kind of thing. You know, the other thing that you can have that I have experienced to some degree is you can become obsessed with people or things. I'm not sure if that's termed limerence. I really need to Google that. But yeah, you can sort of go all in and be obsessed with another person or things. So yeah, and because of that, and also wanting people to like you or to fit in with people, I think as an autistic person or ADHD person that you're vulnerable to being groomed. I think you've definitely got to watch out for people that are manipulative because I think that it is easy, although it's less easy to try and manipulate me these days because I just assume everybody's trying to manipulate me now, which protects me from being manipulated, really. And I have tried to fit in to a degree, but I don't follow any trend that I can't stand, just to fit in with other people. But I think it's more a case of you don't fit in. So you're trying to find out who you are by trying to fit in with different people or different groups. And at some point, you're just like, yeah, this isn't working for me. I still don't feel comfortable. I'm not fitting in. It's, yeah, difficult. Another thing that resonated with me was that a lot of people with autism, I'm not sure about the ADHD side of this, it's the gender thing. So I've never felt female in inverted commas. And when I say that, I don't really know what that's supposed to feel like because I think it's what society have decided for people with female genitalia, assigned female at birth, I think they call it these days AFAB. I always sort of think that it's got some association with being girly and flowery and wanting to do your hair and your nails. And when I was a kid, I wanted to be a boy. I would I begged to have my hair cut short loads of times, and I even went to a barber's once, and they wouldn't cut my hair because I was a girl. I was like, "Are you actually for real?" I think I ended up getting my mum to cut it in the end, which was not a good idea at all. When I look back at photographs of myself as a child, most of them do have short hair, but it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad, and quite a few of the photographs you wouldn't be able to pick me out as a girl. So yeah, I was climbing trees. I hung around with my brother and his mates. I mean, I did sometimes wear dresses and skirts. I had like a rah-rah skirt and I loved twirling around in it and going up in the air. But it wouldn't, yeah, I was more comfortable in jeans. And again, the hair thing was a sensory thing at the moment. I'm letting it grow again because I did have it cut quite short. Not as short as I wanted it, but my husband did not want me to get it cut as short as I wanted it. So kind of compromised. So when my hair is long, it just drives me crackers. It hits my shoulders, flicks up and touches my face, and I can't stand it. It's heavy because it's so thick, and it is just a pain in the backside. I don't care whether people think that I look good with long hair, but now I've had it shorter. Oh my God, I keep having to straighten it. I don't want to do the girly things. I am no good with doing hair stuff. And I definitely don't want to have to get up on a morning and find that my hair is all over the place and flicked out this way at one side and flicked under at the other and have to get the straighteners out and fix it every day. I just don't want to do that. So now I'm letting it grow again. Probably until I get wound up with it being long, just so that I can bloody tie it back out the way or something. Yeah, it's the sensory thing again. But, I mean, I didn't want a sex change or something like that. I just didn't want to be a girl. And I don't identify, I guess. I identify as female. I am female because that's what I was born as, a female. But I don't feel like I'm a female. I don't feel like I'm a male. I just agree with these people's opinion, the non binary type of thing, as in you shouldn't have to have this definition. I don't go into the whole pronouns thing because that just drives me mad. I don't care how somebody refers to me. And I get really confused having to try and remember to refer to other people in certain ways where, if we didn't make people feel so uncomfortable about just being themselves, regardless of what sex they were born as, we wouldn't have people probably defining themselves using different pronouns. If they were just accepted for who they were in the first place, I don't think it would be an issue. So that's another thing that I identified with, the sort of non-gendered thing that you can identify with as an autistic person in general. I think it's usually down to that rather. I don't think they put that down to ADHD. So yeah, I didn't have any learning issues when I was a child. I actually could read before I went to school. So I was on the other side of it, having skills above my peers, really. I read a lot of books. I've always read a lot of books. I read series of books. And I actually can get upset when there are no more books in a series. And it's the same with TV series. If I really get into a series and then they suddenly decide they're not making it anymore, I can actually feel bereft. I can actually be in tears because it has ended. It's like it's died. Crazy as that might sound, I get attached to that and into it. And once I get into a series as well, it's like reading a book. I want to watch it all the time. So like every spare second. I'm currently watching what is actually a really crap series on Disney called Private Practice. And I think it's made by the same person that makes Grey's Anatomy. And I kind of got into it, but it's really annoying because it's just so shallow compared to that. And these people are just jumping on each other all the time. And there's only so many people in this practice, but they all have relationships with each other and nobody else outside this blooming practice, which I find to be extremely bizarre and quite ridiculous. But there's something about the characters' interactions and the storylines that obviously has grabbed me because my husband hates it. We don't watch it if he's in the room, which means that if he's gone out to walk the dog or whatever, I'll just quickly watch some of it. But it's just like reading a book. Once I'm into a book, that's it. Sometimes it can take me a while to get past the first few pages, but once I'm into a book, I don't want to not read the book. So life totally gets in the way of reading the book. Sleep gets in the way of reading a book. I'm very gripped by whatever it is, and I just have to read that. With TV series, not so much books, but TV series, sometimes I can't bear waiting to find out if what happens in a certain situation, so I will Google it and find out, because I'm usually watching things on the back foot, so people have watched these stuff years ago or whatever. So I can't. It makes me feel uncomfortable, or it makes me feel anxious if I don't know what happened in a certain situation, and then I can go and Google it, find out that somebody did die, didn't die, or did get back together with somebody, or whatever it is, I can find it out, and then I can be relaxed and I can enjoy watching my program again. And yeah, I get my head shaken at me, but it's the only thing I can do to keep myself on a level. Inanimate objects, so such as soft toys or even your car, thinking that they have feelings or emotions, even if you've got a part of your brain that knows that this is probably not true. It can make it difficult to part with them, like to sell your car or to get rid of toys from childhood. We had a big teddy bear that me and my brother used to argue over whose teddy it was. It was ridiculous. It had a zip on the back of its neck and it was full with bits of foam. And I somehow ended up with it as an adult at my house. And it was threadbare. It was ridiculous. It was big. It was taking up space. But I could not get rid of that teddy. I could not. I felt so guilty and bad for the teddy if I was going to take it to the tip. The idea of it going to the tip was just absolutely awful. And I couldn't do it. I had to get my husband to do it when I wasn't there, because I also have object impermanence, which is another trait of AuDHD. And once I can't see a thing, it doesn't exist. So it makes it easier if somebody I can manage to say, okay, I could probably part with this. I could probably live with not seeing it again, but I can't be the one that does this. I can't be the one that kills spiders because I'll let somebody else do it, but I'm not going to be the one that does the thing, because the amount of guilt I feel, because obviously a spider probably does have feelings. It certainly probably feels pain, and I can't actually do it. But it's, the same with the inanimate objects. Getting diagnosed is a tricky thing, as in you need that validation. Well, I needed the validation. I needed the validation. I had to know, and I had to have what I believed validated by somebody in a professional position that was deemed to be able to diagnose me with my neurotype. Because it's not like people say that it is, you know, well, it is a disability because of the world we live in. That's the only thing that makes it a disability. It's not a disability like having one leg missing or something. It's, but it can be disabling. But having somebody validate your experience and validate that all the things you thought, you were screwed up or broken because of, were actually just down to this neurotype that you've got, that your brain works in a different way to other people's, and that's just the way it is, really. But it's not because you're screwed in the head. It's not. It just makes a big difference in your head. There's the bad sides of it is, well, when I went to work, I was met with different reactions. And one of the reactions was, don't be so ridiculous. There's nothing wrong with you. You don't need a label. Don't let people label you. And I was like so upset. I was like, I did not let somebody label me. I sought that label. I needed the validation. I was like, you are so invalidating. And I was quite rude to that person and then stormed off crying. Because it's just like, but when you haven't got an intellectual disability as such, it's hard for people to accept because of the ignorance. Nobody knows what autism is, nobody understands it. And when the other people that you're telling also possibly neurodivergent themselves, or if they see anything in you that they identify with themselves. They don't want to accept that. Not everybody wants to think that, they could be neurodivergent. So, I was met with, oh, everybody's jumping on this bandwagon, rah, 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 rah. And that was really like upsetting. And I did walk around for quite some time with a badge on my back that my sister got me saying actually, hashtag actually autistic, because I just thought, screw you. I just couldn't believe it, really. And then you go through the process of feeling like, how could my life have been different if I'd have known this all my life, rather than finding out when I'm 49 years old and, the best part of my life, in relation to what I've done with my life, is pretty much over now. Would I have done things differently? Maybe I wouldn't have done things. Maybe I would have used it as a reason not to do things, which is what I have to tell myself so that I can be happy with, I guess I'm talking about career choices, the things that I've been, like, I was paralyzed with fear when I did a counselling course. I did like a level 1, was it level 2 counselling course. And when it came to practicing the counselling skills, I was absolutely fine when I was working in a group with my peers. One day there was not enough students because somebody hadn't come in. So the tutor, who was a counsellor as well, decided to be the person that we had to practice on. And that was it. Fear of being judged is like a big thing for me. Don't make me stand up and in front of a load of people and say, hi, my name is, and this is this, that, and the other about me. And I don't do role playing easily. It's not anything that I embrace at all. So I sat there in front of this person and I couldn't speak. I literally couldn't practice my skills because my brain wouldn't allow my mouth to move. And instead, I started crying. So I would rather, or my brain would rather, that I was sat there in front of all these people crying than just trying to practice the skills that we learned. And that was the end of it. I wasn't going to go on to do any more levels because I knew that you had to do other things like video sessions with people. And I just, was crippled by it. But had I have known that it was because of my autism that I found that difficult, I might have been able to find ways around it, or somebody else might have been able to support me to help me find a way around that. So that's quite annoying to know that, because it was an opportunity, something that I was very interested in at the time and that I wanted to do, and yet I just walked away. I walked away from it. So that is something that I guess you kind of grieve the missed opportunities when you find out that there's a reason for the why things didn't work. So yeah, that can be disappointing. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad I got the diagnosis. I'm glad that I know. I am kinder to myself, and I do actually not push myself necessarily to do things that I don't want to do. Before, I felt like if I was invited to something, which is very rare, because I don't have a big social circle and I don't choose to go out drinking and stuff like that. It's not, don't, just don't do it. Although I feel a little bit bad letting people down if they wanted me to attend something. Quite often now I will just look after myself, especially now get so much more overwhelmed, because I get the time where I'd gone to the mental health team. I was told by my assessor when I had my diagnosis that it will have been autistic burnout. Quite a few things had happened that year to overwhelm me that I just couldn't. I had blood clots in my neck. Nobody found out why, which was really traumatic and scary. The older dog that we had died, and I didn't think I really cared before she died, but oh my God, did I care once she died. And then stupidly, I say stupidly, but I won't be without her now, but got a new puppy a few months later, and that was really difficult. I really struggled. I take her to work. I took her to work from being 9 weeks old, and yeah, I really struggled with that. And then my dad died, and I hadn't had a good relationship with my dad. Pretty much, he was schizophrenic and he was difficult, and obviously my new type, I think, clashed with his, and I hadn't seen him for probably 5 years before he died, and he died unexpectedly, and yeah, it was a lot worse than I thought it would be, and then I had to as well deal with. I've never dealt with death before, and I've never, as his next of kin, had to do all the arranging. Like, I knew nothing about it. I had to do everything to do like the funeral thing. One of my brothers did do the eulogy thing, and I think my other brother had selected the readings. But like, who knows what you do when somebody dies? Like, how, like, who to ring? Where does the body go? What do you do? It was just, yeah. So I had a lot of difficult things, and that was all in the space of 6 to 8 months, and it was just too much. I couldn't. I just wanted to not be here. I wasn't actively intending to do anything, but I literally just didn't want to be alive, and I knew how bad that must sound to the people around me that care about me and love me, but nothing made me feel like I wanted to be here. I mean, in general, I just think that I'm finding things to do until I die. So, that's a daily experience of life. But I really, yeah, there was just nothing that made me want to get up, although I did get up because I don't like letting people down. So I don't like stay in bed and not get up and stuff. So, yeah, it was a tricky time, but I'm definitely glad that I got my diagnosis. So in England, you can use right to choose to get a diagnosis for autism and or ADHD. You go to the ADHD UK website, and it has it has all the instructions on how you go about accessing right to choose. It tells you all the different waiting times as far as it's updated by the providers. It tells you all the providers that you can go to. So basically, the NHS have subcontracted, because they cannot cope with the amount of assessments that are being requested. They've subcontracted these assessments out to private providers, but they pay for it. Like I said, it's only available in England. You can't do it if you're in Wales, Scotland, or Northern Ireland. It is just NHS England that have done this. So you go and have a look. I mean, you can make a choice based on a waiting list, but I would do your research. If you're autistic, you probably will do your research. Trustpilot is one place to go to have a look and see what other people have said about the provider. I still haven't done my Trustpilot review. I used Problem Shared. Their current waiting times on ADHD UK's website for the autism diagnosis is 70 weeks, but for ADHD it's showing as 15 weeks, and that is from them accepting you've got to fill all the forms in that they provide to you and answer all the questions, and it's quite intense. Like, there are lots of questions for you, and you're supposed to have an informant as well, and that's supposed to be like a parent, somebody that's known you since you were a small child. I actually got my husband to do it because my mum can't remember stuff, and I'm the oldest of six, and everything gets muddled up in your head when you've got six children, especially when the rest of them came after me. Like I say, my husband's known me since I was 15, and I had school reports from the age of 12. And obviously, you can also tell them of your own experience because you lived your experience. My struggle was that I struggled to remember my childhood as well as one might hope for. But again, that is also common in people with autism or ADHD. So they expect that that might be a problem. So it is from filling these forms in, getting them sent back. They then have to accept you for an assessment based on the answers that you've given to all the questions on the form. So the waiting time isn't from when you get referred by your GP. It is from when you submit your completed forms and you've had the call to say that they've accepted it. All the information, like I say, is on the ADHD UK website. Problem shared is a good one to choose. It's just, I mean, it's taken a year for them though to actually get back to me to titrate me for medication for ADHD. And that is a long time, but I don't think that anywhere else is really any better. So Panorama did do a program about one of them, claiming that I don't know if they're still a provider actually on Right to Choose, because I can't remember which one it was, claiming that they were just giving people diagnoses out without doing proper assessments. And literally, there wasn't anybody not getting a diagnosis that was going through. But to be fair, if you are accepted on the basis of the answers that you've given to those questions, then the likelihood is that they assume that you have got autism or ADHD. It's like these no win, no fee insurance companies. If they don't think you've got a chance of winning, they ain't going to take you on. So, they did quite a lot of damage, that Panorama program did quite a lot of damage in relation to people getting these diagnoses through Right to Choose and from people believing the diagnoses that people have been getting. It's not good when people, it's hard enough living your life, with neurodivergence without people just disregarding it because of some program they saw on the BBC. My experience of the problem shared process was that I had to go on their website. They had a letter I could download to give to my GP, which told my GP that I had a right to request a referral, and that I was asking them to do that. And it gave all the whatever, and you just need to sign it, address it to your own GP and sign it. And then there is some short forms like an AQ10 and I can't remember what the other one's called for ADHD, but you need to fill those in and print them off ideally because they give you like a score, I guess, for relevance, but also explain to your GP why you do need a face-to-face appointment as well when you take your forms in. I thought I could just leave them at the front desk and then I ended up with a phone call. You need to have an appointment to see the GP about this. So you need to explain to your GP why you also believe that you need an assessment or how it's been affecting you. My GP probably already realised that I was autistic for reasons I'm not going to go into. And also, I explained to them about the synesthesia, and they didn't even argue it, they just put it straight through. So, I have heard that some GPs refuse, they claim that they don't think you're autistic or they don't think it's relevant, so they're not going to refer you. But that's, how can they do that? The GP doesn't necessarily know what goes on in your life when you're not, and especially if you don't go to the GP that much. How they can, the people that are making that assessment are the people they're referring you to. Otherwise, GPs would be there to diagnose you with ADHD and autism. So yeah, I'm sorry that's gone on for a long time. Like I say, I digress so much. I get, which was one of the reasons probably that I got diagnosed. I can't manage to stay on track with things because there's something else I need to say, and a thought pops in my head, and oh yeah, I need to tell you about that as well because it seems relevant to me at that moment in time. But then I've forgotten what I was saying before I went off on the tangent. So if you've managed to listen this far, thank you very much. I'm currently being titrated on ADHD medication, so I will be posting some sort of like a video diary to try and show people how that's going. So yeah, and I apologise if I've muddled any of my words up because I don't realise I'm doing it until I listen back to the videos, and then I've said some words the wrong way around. But it's me, you know, I'm not deleting it and doing it again. I don't come with filters or special lighting or a persona that I've put on just so that I'm a different person when I'm doing my videos on YouTube. I just don't get it. I don't get it. I'm just me. This is real. Like I say, late diagnosed AuDHD female in the UK. And people just have to take me as they find me. So I'll be interested to read any comments that you put below. But yeah, so thank you for listening.